It was Easter Sunday, the air thick with the sweet scent of lilies and the promise of spring. My cousin Sarah's kids were running around the backyard, hunting for brightly colored eggs. My Aunt Susan was meticulously arranging deviled eggs on a platter, and my Uncle Mark was manning the grill, a spatula in one hand and a beer in the other. It looked like a perfect Norman Rockwell painting. And then I saw them. Standing awkwardly near the gate, looking as out of place as a pair of penguins at a luau. My parents. I should have known this idyllic scene wouldn't last. I'll never forget the wave of nausea that hit me as I watched them approach. Hi everyone, my name is Eliza, and believe it or not, this Easter Sunday was the first time I'd seen my parents in almost 18 years. I know, it sounds crazy.
If you've ever experienced a family estrangement, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. Tell me where you're listening from too. The last time I'd really spoken to them, I was 10 years old. I remember the day vividly. It was a Tuesday, I think, or maybe a Wednesday. It doesn't really matter now, does it? The sun was shining, unusually bright for late September. My parents packed me into our old station wagon, the one with the fake wood paneling and the perpetually sticky back seat. They told me we were going to visit Grandma for a few days, a mini vacation. I was thrilled. Grandma always had a stash of cookies and let me watch cartoons all day. The drive seemed longer than usual. My mum kept glancing back at me in the rearview mirror, a strange, sad look on her face. My dad was silent, his knuckles white as he gripped the steering wheel. When we finally pulled up to Grandma's small, unassuming house on Willow Creek Lane, I practically leaped out of the car. "We'll be back to get you soon, honey," my mum said, her voice a little shaky. "Be good for Grandma," my dad added, avoiding my eyes. I didn't think anything of it. I was 10. Parents dropped their kids off at Grandma's all the time. I waved goodbye, already imagining the adventures that awaited me. That was the last time I saw them for almost 2 decades. They never came back. Grandma, bless her heart, didn't say much. She just hugged me tight and led me inside. I remember asking her when Mom and Dad would be back. She'd just pat my head and say, "Soon, dear, soon." But soon never came. The first few weeks were confusing. I kept waiting by the window, watching for the familiar station wagon to pull up.
I'd ask Grandma every day, "When are Mom and Dad coming home?" She always gave me the same vague answer, her eyes filled with a pity I didn't understand. Eventually, the question stopped. Not because I stopped wondering, but because I learned that asking only made Grandma sad, and I hated seeing her sad. She was all I had now. School was complicated. Kids would ask about my parents, and I'd make up stories. They're on a business trip, I'd say. Or, they're visiting relatives in Europe. The lies came easily, a shield against the pitying looks and whispered questions. It was easier than admitting the truth, that my parents had simply left, abandoned me. Grandma did her best. She worked tirelessly to provide for me. Her small Social Security checks stretched thin. We didn't have much, but we had each other, and that, I realized, was enough. Years passed.
I went through all the normal milestones, middle school dances, high school graduation, my first job. Grandma was always there, cheering me on, wiping away my tears, and offering her unwavering love and support. My parents remained a silent, empty space in my life, a question mark I couldn't quite erase. Then, 3 months ago, Grandma passed away. She'd been sick for a while, her body slowly giving out after 87 years of a life well lived. I was devastated. She was my rock, my anchor, my everything. The funeral was small, just close family and friends. As I stood there, numb with grief, I saw them, standing near the back, their faces etched with a mixture of sadness and, was that guilt? My parents. After all these years, my blood ran cold. 1,000 questions swirled in my mind. Why now? Why after all this time? Did they even have the right to be here? The service was a blur.
I barely registered the kind words spoken about Grandma, the comforting presence of my friends and family. All I could see were my parents, their eyes fixed on me with an intensity I couldn't decipher. After the service, as people began to leave, they approached me. My mother reached out, her hand hovering hesitantly in the air. "Eliza," she said, her voice trembling slightly, "we're so sorry for your loss." I stared at her, my heart pounding in my chest. Sorry? Sorry for my loss? What about my loss of them? Of all the years they'd missed? Of all the milestones they hadn't been there for? "What are you doing here?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. My father stepped forward, his face etched with pain. "We wanted to pay our respects to your grandmother," he said. "She was a good woman." "You don't get to do this," I said, my voice rising.
You don't get to show up after all these years and pretend like you care. You left me. You abandoned me. Tears welled up in my mother's eyes. We didn't want to, she said, her voice choked with emotion. We had to. Had to. I repeated, incredulous. Had to leave your 10-year-old daughter? What kind of excuse is that? My father sighed, running a hand through his thinning hair. It's complicated, Eliza, he said. You wouldn't understand. Then explain it to me, I'd admit, because right now, all I feel is anger and betrayal and a profound sense of loss. They looked at each other, a silent conversation passing between them. Finally, my mother spoke. We can't explain it here, she said. Can we talk, please? I hesitated. A part of me wanted to scream at them, to tell them to get out of my life and never come back. But another part, a small, wounded part, desperately wanted to know why. Why they had left. Why they had chosen to abandon me. Fine, I said, my voice cold. But I'm not making any promises. We agreed to meet a few days later at a neutral location, a quiet coffee shop in a nearby town. I spent the next few days in a state of turmoil, replaying the funeral scene over and over in my head. What could they possibly say to justify their actions? What excuse could be good enough? When the day finally arrived, I was a nervous wreck. I barely slept the night before, tossing and turning, haunted by memories of my childhood. The good memories, the ones filled with love and laughter, and the bad memories, the ones filled with loneliness and confusion. I arrived at the coffee shop early, needing to collect my thoughts.
I ordered a latte and sat at a table near the window, watching the world go by. The minutes ticked by slowly, each one feeling like an eternity. Finally, they arrived. They looked older than I remembered, their faces lined with worry and regret. We exchanged awkward greetings and sat down. The silence hung heavy in the air, thick with unspoken words and unresolved emotions. "So," I said, breaking the silence, "tell me, why did you leave?" My father took a deep breath. "It's not easy to explain," he said. "We were going through a difficult time. We were young and we made mistakes." "Mistakes?" I repeated, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "Leaving your child is a mistake? That's a pretty big mistake, don't you think?" My mother reached across the table and took my hand. "Eliza, please," she said, her voice pleading. "Try to understand. We were struggling. We were in debt, our business was failing, and we were fighting all the time. We felt like we were drowning. So you decided to throw me overboard?" I asked, my voice trembling. "No," my father exclaimed. "That's not what we meant. We thought we were doing what was best for you. We thought you'd be better off with your grandmother. She could provide you with stability and love." "And what about my stability and love for you?" I countered. "Did you ever think about that? Did you ever think about how it would feel to be abandoned by your own parents?" They both looked down, shame etched on their faces. "We know we hurt you," my mother said. And we're so sorry, we regret it every single day. But you didn't regret it enough to come back, I pointed out. You didn't regret it enough to pick up the phone or write a letter, you just disappeared. We were ashamed, my father admitted.
We were afraid of what you would think of us. We were afraid of facing you. So you chose to stay away, I said, my voice rising. You chose to let me grow up without you? You missed my graduation. You missed everything. Tears streamed down my face. I needed you, I said, my voice breaking. I needed my parents, and you weren't there. My mother reached out to wipe away my tears, but I pulled away. Don't, I said. Don't touch me. You don't get to pretend like you care now. You lost that right a long time ago. We know we can't undo the past, my father said. But we want to be a part of your life now. We want to get to know you. We want to make up for lost time. You can't make up for lost time, I said, shaking my head. You can't rewind the clock. You can't erase the pain. But we can try, my mother pleaded. Please, Eliza, give us a chance. I looked at them, their faces filled with desperation. A part of me, a small, forgiving part, wanted to believe them, wanted to give them another chance. But the years of hurt and resentment were too strong. The wounds were too deep. I don't know if I can, I said, my voice barely a whisper. I need time. I stood up, grabbing my purse. I have to go, I said. I can't do this right now. I turned and walked away, leaving them sitting there, their faces etched with disappointment and regret. I didn't look back. In the weeks that followed, my parents bombarded me with phone calls and text messages. They sent flowers, cards, and even a few small gifts. I ignored them all. I couldn't bring myself to respond. Then, they started showing up at family events, a birthday party for my cousin's daughter, a 4th of July barbecue at my aunt's house. Each time I felt a knot of anxiety tighten in my stomach. I tried to be polite, to keep the peace, but it was exhausting. Every conversation felt strained, every interaction awkward. I could feel the tension simmering beneath the surface, threatening to explode. And then came that Easter Sunday. Seeing them standing there, near the gate, brought all those unresolved feelings rushing back to the surface. It was too much. What are you doing here? I asked, my voice shaking with anger. My mother stepped forward, holding out a basket filled with Easter eggs. We just wanted to say hello, she said, her voice tentative. And to wish everyone a happy Easter. You're not welcome here, I said, my voice rising. You haven't been a part of this family for years. You don't get to just show up and pretend like everything is okay. My father sighed. Eliza, please, he said. Don't make a scene. I'm not making a scene, I retorted. You are. By showing up here uninvited, you're disrupting everyone's holiday. My Aunt Susan, who had been watching the exchange with growing concern, stepped forward. Eliza, she said, her voice gentle. Maybe we should talk about this later. No, Aunt Susan, I said. We need to talk about it now. Everyone needs to know the truth about what happened. I turned to face my parents, my eyes blazing with anger. You abandoned me, I said, my voice loud and clear. You left me with my grandmother and never looked back, and now, after all these years, you think you can just waltz back into my life and everything will be fine? Well, it doesn't work that way. My mother started to cry. We're so sorry, Eliza, she sobbed. We never meant to hurt you, but you did hurt me, I said, my voice cold.
You hurt me more than you can ever imagine. I turned and walked away, leaving them standing there, surrounded by the curious stares of my family. I went inside, slamming the door behind me. I spent the rest of the day in my room, trying to calm down, but the anger and resentment continued to simmer inside me. I knew I couldn't keep living like this, constantly on edge, waiting for my parents to reappear and disrupt my life. I decided to seek therapy. I needed to talk to someone to process my feelings and to figure out how to move forward. My therapist was wonderful. She listened patiently as I poured out my story, offering support and guidance. She helped me to understand my anger, to acknowledge my pain, and to start healing. It wasn't easy. There were days when I felt overwhelmed by sadness and resentment, days when I wanted to lash out at my parents to make them feel the pain they had caused me. But slowly, gradually, I began to heal. I started to focus on myself, on my own happiness and well-being. I reconnected with old friends, pursued new hobbies, and traveled to places I'd always dreamed of visiting. I realized that I didn't need my parents to be happy. I could create my own happiness, my own life, without them. After several months of therapy, I made a decision. I decided to cut off contact with my parents. I blocked their phone numbers, unfriended them on social media, and asked my family to stop giving them my address. It was a difficult decision, but it was the right one for me. I needed to protect myself, to create a safe and peaceful space in my life. My parents were devastated. They tried to contact me through mutual friends, through old colleagues, even through the mail.
But I refused to respond. Eventually, they got the message. They stopped trying to reach me. They disappeared from my life once again. It's been 5 years since I made that decision. 5 years since I last spoke to my parents. And I can honestly say that I'm happier now than I've ever been. I have a fulfilling career, a loving partner, and a strong network of friends and family. I've built a life that I'm proud of, a life that is filled with joy and purpose. I still think about my parents sometimes. I wonder if they're happy, if they regret their choices, but I don't dwell on it. I've come to accept that I may never fully understand why they left, and that's okay. What matters is that I've moved on. I've healed. I've found my own path. A few months ago, I ran into my Aunt Susan at a local farmer's market. We chatted for a while, catching up on each other's lives.
As we were saying goodbye, she hesitated for a moment, then said, "Your mother called me the other day." My heart skipped a beat. "What did she want?" I asked, my voice tense. "She just wanted to know how you were doing," Aunt Susan said. "She said she misses you." I sighed. "Tell her I'm fine," I said. "But tell her to please stop calling. I need my space." Aunt Susan nodded. "I understand," she said. "I'll tell her." As I walked away, I couldn't help but wonder why my parents were still trying to reach me after all this time. Why couldn't they just let me go? Then it hit me. It wasn't about me. It was about them. They weren't trying to reconnect with me because they cared about me. They were trying to reconnect with me because they wanted to alleviate their own guilt. They wanted to believe that they weren't bad parents, that they hadn't made a terrible mistake. They wanted to rewrite the past, to erase their shame. But I wasn't willing to let them. I wasn't willing to sacrifice my own peace of mind to ease their conscience. I had spent too many years healing, too many years building a life without them. I realized that I deserved to be happy. I deserved to be surrounded by people who loved and supported me unconditionally. And if my parents couldn't provide that, then I was better off without them. That's when I truly understood that some people are just not meant to be in your life, no matter how much you want them to be. And sometimes, the most loving thing you can do is to let them go for your own sake. I know now that their absence, though painful, ultimately led me to become the strong, independent woman I am today. And I wouldn't trade that for anything. Some people break families, others rebuild them from the ashes.
If you enjoyed this story, subscribe to the channel for more such narrations.